I'm from Lobster Engineering, St. Andrews International
And I'm
School.
Wenwen, and I'm part of the board group.
I'm Poom. I'm also part of the group. And
I'm Nikki, part of Boiled Lobster Engineering from St. Andrews International School.
During construction, we face many different problems, and for the most part, our entry is nowhere near what we first designed it to be. We ended up having to scrap a lot of ideas that we had, especially the electronics, due to poor implementation or just straight up poor design. This is a sketch of what our first design was supposed to look like. It had a button that activated a servo motor to turn a gear, which was connected to a piston mechanism. We went through different versions of this starting mechanism. Version 2 of our design had a boat track that pushed a button to activate the servo. Another one of our designs included the boat having a piece to push the magnets. Eventually, we settled on just starting the machine off with a hand crank piston to push the marble on the track. And we also had to scrap the boat idea completely as it was unreliable. Well, most of our machine is unreliable, but we'll get to that. The marble track stayed more or less the same throughout all the different versions of our machine. The only change we made to it was we added some other pieces to extend the runtime of the machine. Well, sometimes there was a problem where the marble would roll off the track, so we had to add some pieces to make sure that that didn't happen. But apart from that, most of it stayed the same. Then, we get to the first problem with our machine, the marble domino discombobulation. Where do we begin? Our first design was to have 3 modules of a mechanism where marbles would roll and knock out supports, allowing other marbles to roll down and so on. Then the marbles would fall into holes to form a platform for the other marbles to roll through. It took a very long time to get one module working, so we just settled for one. However, there was a problem that the marbles sometimes would not push the support hard enough to fall down. We tried many things to solve this problem. We added a piece at the bottom of the funnel to try and make the gravitational potential energy to kinetic energy transfer more efficient. For the most part, this worked, but there are some times when it doesn't have quite enough oomph. We also tried to increase the length of the piece, to increase the moment that the marble applied on the support. This sort of works, but it's unreliable as well. But that's just how the ball bounces sometimes, or in this case, how the marble rolls. The next part is the marble rolls along some tracks and then it falls onto a gear, which turns some fidget spinners, in a sort of fidget spinner gear chain. We had a problem where the linkages connected to the fidget spinners were not the same height, which led to them not actually hitting each other to transfer the energy. Also, they were a pain to set up, as the bottom fidget spinner wasn't balanced, so it took a long time to stabilize it. Now, the fidget spinner at the top hits a button, which activates an Arduino servo connected to a gear. The gear is supposed to, the key phrase there is supposed to, turn after the button is pressed to stop blocking the zipline. What actually happens is that the electronics are a bit iffy. Basically, that means they're extremely inconsistent. Sometimes it works, sometimes the wires get disconnected and it doesn't work. There was a problem with the code where the servo would be spinning very slowly till the button was pressed when it would increase the speed. Anyways, after that, the zip line gets released by the gear. It slides and knocks a marble into a tube. The marble is pulled to the ground because of gravity, which activates the scissor mechanism. The scissor mechanism extends and pushes a platform up, which then makes a marble roll into the oscillating curve. The marble rolls for a bit and then falls through the hole in the middle, where it knocks off a support which is holding a heavy pendulum. The heavy pendulum then swings into the toothpaste tube, which then squirts out the toothpaste onto the toothbrush. There's a problem with the last part as well. The pendulum isn't heavy enough to squirt the toothpaste out. We tried to increase the weight of the pendulum, we tried to increase the length of the pendulum, but nothing has worked so far.